Welcome to the Infosys Knowledge Institute Podcast, where business leaders share what they've learned on their technology journey. I'm Chad Watt, Infosys Knowledge Institute researcher and writer. Today, I am speaking with Dominic Murphy, North American Gen AI Solution Architect Leader at AWS, and Guru Prasad NV, Associate Vice President at Infosys with deep experience in enterprise AI transformation. Guru is in charge of the Infosys Topaz Center of Excellence. Dominic and Guru have been working with artificial intelligence and making it useful for companies for decades. Today, we will be talking about AI agents. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Chad.
Dominic and Guru, both of you, how were you putting AI to work from 2000 to about 2020?
I think it was a real progressive journey between predictive analytics and machine learning. And so a couple of dominant use cases that we saw was recommender systems. We worked with customers across various industries, including retail, CPG, media, and travel and hospitality. And it was about making better product recommendations with analytics that would better delight them or give them a better customer experience. We also worked with what I would consider risk and fraud models. And these were, again, across a variety of industries. And so, for example, with financial services, we work on credit scores and risk mitigation for everything from consumer loans to capital management and capital intensive projects. And as it relates to even things such as logistics shippers and looking for potential fraud cases where a customer was maybe saying that they were shipping feathers, but they were actually shipping car batteries. And that actually had a lot of additional weight in fuel costs for those shippers. And so we wanted to help detect that. So I would say it was pretty much a journey in evolution, but customers were very interested in being able to use machine learning and artificial intelligence to better serve their customers, their patients, their shareholders, and their employees.
How about you, Guru?
I have spent about 18 years in Infosys and a good number of years working on building solutions leveraging AI. As you know, Infosys is an AI-first company. We believe in embracing AI internally, learning from it, and then taking those practices to our customers. Our journey began way back in 2013-14. We started by transforming our internal functions such as finance, HR, IT support, employee experience, onboarding, recruitment, and many other functions. Subsequently, we expanded this to our learning platform where AI helped in a very big way. Our employees were able to unearth more content, plan their training, and do a lot more with those platforms. And then finally, we expanded this to our enterprise search. We made sure that people were able to query, use natural language to get information within our enterprise repository. And as we learned, we also embedded this in a very significant way in our offerings, which is something that we are taking to our customers now. So that's been my experience, Chad.
Now, Dominic, when did you become aware of generative AI and the boom and interest that it created?
I would say the first awareness was early 2018. Fast forward a short time afterwards, probably a few years, there's a different architect on my team that had built an application called Bot or Not using GPT-3. And the customers for Bot or Not were internal employees that were not necessarily calibrated on artificial intelligence or transformer architectures and machine learning. And the Bot or Not application was a simple mobile application, and you interacted with it by asking it questions, and you would either get a GPT-3 generated response or you get a human response. And the consumer would rate the response, whether or not, as the application was called, Bot or Not. And when I saw that application, I saw the response from just employees that weren't necessarily in the artificial intelligence realm. I realized that this was going to have huge potential, even outside of the world of machine learning and AI that I was typically steeped in, and more towards consumer-facing awareness.
Wow. Now, Dominic, what is agentic AI?
Agentic AI is the ability to have essentially tools, function calling, and generative AI models to be able to augment the human experience by performing tasks or helping us augment tasks on our behalf. The great thing about agents is they can be available 24/7. And so we have some tasks that typically are designed around the human work shift. And with agentic architectures and agents, we can have agents running 24/7. The other limitation we have on human agency is just the number of humans that are required to perform the tasks. With agentic AI, we can have multiple agents helping augment the human experience. And the benefit here is not just to the company that's running the agents, but more importantly, to the end customer experience. Agents have tremendous potential to help augment all the tasks that we do on a day-to-day basis and making them more scalable and more available than what we could do with just human agency alone.
Now, a question for both of you, and maybe Guru, you can lead off. What types of AI are you putting into production now?
So we have delivered over 400 generative AI projects in the last 12, 18 months alone. The approach we've taken is we've invested in creating industry blueprints, and these blueprints capture the trends, the top use cases, and we're essentially going to our customers with this blueprints. Within the finance operations, we have deployed Agentic AI in a very big way in the invoice to cash process. So today we have agents tracking, generating, dispatching, and doing follow-ups. So this is something that was done using a combination of people, RPAs, and some traditional approach. And this has now been fully transformed using Agentic AI. This project went live in the last quarter, and within the first 3 months, we've seen phenomenal results. And this obviously has an impact on our on our cash flow and our AR. So those are some of the projects that we've been undertaking in the recent past.
How about you, Dominic?
It's helping developers take advantage of these agents that will help migrate code. And this is undifferentiated heavy lifting that most of our developers don't typically enjoy doing. And by migrating, talking about being able to change from one language to another, say take Java code and turn it into Python, or an older version of Python and upgrade it. And this has it's just tremendous potential to help with the productivity and help us actually get code up to date in a much faster format. Going back to content creation, we also see customers that are using generative AI as design assistants. I will tell you, I'm personally not a very creative person, but I can interact with these tools to create some mock-ups, create some wireframes. And this helps my own creative process so that I can get to what the actual outcome is that I'm looking for much faster by being able to use tools that can create the creative content for me, create the designs, create the mock-ups, and then I kind of choose which ones I want to give to my team to actually flesh out.
What do you say when a company leader comes to you looking to put AI to work or develop an AI strategy?
Yeah, that's a great question. The first thing I like to understand is I like to start with a thesis of what outcomes they are trying to drive for their business, for their customers, their partners, or their employees. There's no shortage of potential use cases in generative AI that leaders can pursue and potentially implement. However, kind of think of the use case as really a delivery mechanism to achieve some sort of desired business outcome. So I like to start with the desired business outcome first, and then work backwards to align workloads that will and prioritize those workloads that will help achieve those outcomes. And so when we're thinking of workloads, one of the first filters or use cases, one of the first filters we'll pass through is, how is this going to improve the customer experience? How is this going to make life better for them? How is it going to deliver better service, faster service, cheaper service? And if we can't answer that question, we may deprioritize that idea or that workload and look for ones that do. Once the business objectives are defined, and these could be strategic objectives for the entire organization, they may be at the departmental level, it may be at any level of the organization, but once they're defined, we then talk through a couple of frameworks such as AI maturity and readiness. In other words, do we have the right skills? Do we have the right people? And do we have the right technology? And we have the right data in order to accomplish these objectives? Speaking of data, we do talk through data strategy. Is our data discoverable? Is it clean? Is it annotated or decorated? And is it necessary? And if not, then we do work with the customer in terms of helping get their data architecture modernized so it can be optimized for generative AI. When I think of generative AI, it's not necessarily just a technology implementation. I think through this in terms of change management. a lot of these workloads do affect the way that we interact with our customers, interact with each other, and how we do our jobs. And so, for example, if I start with the thesis of the desired business outcome, and it could be improving the customer experience or reducing cost or making us more operationally efficient, well, do I have the right KPIs and the right measurement mechanisms in place so that I can measure, is this actually delivering the value that I predicted? Is it delivering different outcomes that I predicted? And so these are all things that I would look at in terms of, business focus, the technology to implement it, the people strategy, and the right mechanisms to measure and monitor the outcomes.
The Infosys Knowledge Institute recently completed a deep study on AI business value and found that about half of companies are getting return on investment from their AI deployments. But there's a great deal of variability by use case and industry. Dominic, what's your advice on keeping business value at the focus of an AI project?
I think the first piece of advice that I would give is customers are deploying a generative AI proof of concepts or limited use pilots at an unprecedented scale. And I think the first piece of advice that I would have is before embarking on a proof of concept, a proof of value, or limited use pilot is first start with a thesis of what is the intended business outcome that this POC or pilot is looking to solve for. And really making that the first decision that you make before you do any scoping for a POC or any development work. Once you actually have that defined and ensure that that's documented so that it can be communicated with any other stakeholders that would be participating in this pilot, either as a builder or as a user, then put in measurement frameworks for measuring that value.
What special considerations come into play when you're deploying AI agents?
So first of all, these are early days and the technology is still evolving. So you may not have the perfect architecture at this stage, but having a flexible one is certainly important. So the architecture that can embrace changes and ensure that all the evolving things are accounted for. So that's very important. Now, secondly, observability. You can't improve if you can't see or if you can't measure, right? So it's very important to make sure that we are able to observe this. It's critical that these agents tell us what they are doing, how they are doing, and where they're doing. So which means a lot of telemetry has to be generated so that we can keep a tab on it. And it may not be a bad idea to deploy some of these monitoring agents that can keep a close watch on how these agents are performing and create a command center or a dashboard of sorts. Identifying drifts, unusual patterns, these are some of the best practices that we need to build into the agents. And then lastly, from an ethical and responsible AI perspective, you have to make sure that you're fully compliant with local laws. Different geographies have different laws, so you have to make sure that you fully comply with it. So it's important to put in those good practices to avoid and mitigate some of those biases. And lastly, it's also important to put those safeguards in place to ensure that there is no breach of privacy or loss of data. I think that is extremely critical.
What do you think is the main pain point organizations face as they try to get up to speed with responsible AI?
I think at a high level, from my perspective, the main pain points are effectively operationalizing responsible AI ethics principles just broadly across the organization. I think many organizations can create high-level AI ethics principles, guidelines, just in terms of like what our ethos are and how we're thinking about alignment. But they might struggle to translate some of these more abstract concepts into concrete, measurable practices that teams across the organization can consistently follow. Some of the challenges that can come up is technical teams may lack clear guidance on how to apply ethical principles on their day-to-day work. Sometimes organizations can struggle to find measurable indicators of how they want to measure responsible AI. And sometimes getting all of those teams aligned and contributing at the same speed can be a pain point. And then finally, existing governance structures aren't always designed for AI-specific tasks, or I should say AI-specific risks. And so just keeping those up to date and aligned has been maybe a pain point that I've seen some organizations suffer.
From a corporate perspective, we're coming out of the sandbox phase with generative AI. What are the pitfalls in the move from experimenting with AI to using it at scale?
See, in the enterprise world, the way things work is first you allow people to experiment because you want innovation to happen within your organization. But once you reach a stage where you want to scale this, and then you want to put the necessary guardrails in place so that you allow this to scale within your organization. You don't want different people to build their own systems. Say for instance, at Infosys, we have codified this into what we call as the AI adoption playbook. It has 8 different stages that help enterprises scale AI at a very reasonable cost and do it responsibly as well. So just as an example, when it comes to the technology strategy or the technology stack, we recommend adopting a centralized platform-based approach rather than allowing different business units to come up with their own systems. So that clearly helps, bring everyone together. And secondly, you also need a strategy that would centralize this function by providing necessary hardware, software, the guardrails, and other specifications. This platform will also abstract things for you. It will abstract the complexities associated with AI and makes it very easy for the different groups to embrace it quickly. And more importantly, it also helps manage costs, because if it is centralized, it's easy to monitor, it's easy to observe, and keep a tab on how the business groups are consuming this. So this is something that we've been practicing and taking to a lot of our customers as well.
Every cloud platform and SaaS provider has launched or will launch an AI agent this year. Where do you see the greatest potential for AI agents?
I think the greatest potential for agentic AI isn't necessarily replacing humans, but creating new forms of human and AI collaboration that enhances our capabilities with respecting our both our autonomy and our agency. In terms of how that translates into specific tasks or specific workloads, a couple stand out. I think we're already seeing just great adoption around developer productivity agents to help us write code, debug code, test code, and ultimately migrate and upgrade code. And what this really means, what this translates to, is just increasing the velocity of innovation. If I could normally ship 4 products a year without these tools, where I might do 4 products a month, just in terms of being able to increase the velocity of innovation. We see just tremendous use and potential around customer support automation. AI agents that can independently resolve routine and maybe even sometimes complex inquiries. And being able to make that available not only at scale. I gave a little bit of an anecdote in terms of reducing wait times, but also making it available 24/7 so that I can give customers the ultimate convenience of being able to interact with my business and get their issues resolved when it's on their timeline, not on mine. I see tremendous potential when it comes to workflow automation across multiple backend systems we might have, such as CRMs, backend ERP systems, and other databases and tools. Just automatically being able to look things up on my customer's behalf and resolve issues. And then finally, data-driven insights. So we did a little project at Amazon. We like to write documents. We read documents. This is our kind of our formal communication methodology. And we ingested just thousands of pages of different documents that came in. And what we were able to find was just hidden insights and hidden clues within the data that we don't think a human reader would have picked on, just due to the sheer volume of information and being able to make the connective tissue between what was on page 2 and what was on page 2002, and realizing that there was a common underlying theme that was hidden within the data. And so being able to augment the human experience by having agents research things on our behalf to find hidden insights and help us with better decision making.
Great. Guys, thanks so much for this discussion.
Thank you so very much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you very much, Chad.
This podcast is presented by Infosys in partnership with MIT Technology Review. Visit our Enterprise AI Hub at technologyreview.com to learn more. And be sure to follow wherever you get your podcasts. You can find more details in our show notes and transcripts at infosys.com/IKI in our podcast section. Thanks to our producers, Christine Calhoun and Yulia Dabari. Dode Bigley is our audio technician, and I'm Chad Watt with the Infosys Knowledge Institute, signing off. Until next time, keep learning and keep sharing.